Bon dia, Vacorja. Hi, everybody. Eimear Burke here. Welcome to another Fireside Chat. And this is Fireside Chat 205, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And as is customary, I begin with a prayer for peace. Gomara Siacán a fud na crinne. Gomara Siacán in our jaili agus in our jirha. Gonairi lin lenarcid garmacha. Gamwich wikas jiv, jeha chivdaka, spirit chivdaka. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities, for peace. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb, that our swords be beaten into plowshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the Holy Mountain, with thanks to John O'Donoghue. So let me see where you're all from. So from the Netherlands, Hertfordshire, Ballinakilaloo, Denmark, Leslie and Kevin, Gurteen County, Sligo. Gurteen means the little field, by the way. Coastal Dublin. Hi, Carl. Chile. Oh, Chile, Gisborne. Well, it's kind of chilly here in Kilkenny too, Dull. Southwest Wales, lovely. Cloudy Southwest Missouri, brilliant. Lovely to see you all. Where's the people from? Let me see. Old Hampshire, Wisconsin, Minnesota, lovely. Netherlands again, Belgium, sunny Wexford, you're lucky. Missouri, Gloucestershire, sunny Slough. Okay, and Newcastle and Ards, that's well, County Down, Spring Hill, Florida, lovely. So you're all very, very welcome. And we are going to, Orkney, lovely, from sunny island of Stronsay. Hi, Eunice, lovely to see you. Pacific Northwest, brilliant. Italy, ciao. Anyway, let's go to the US, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Lissa Carter. So, Lissa, you're so welcome to this Fireside Chat.
Thank you, Eimear.
So, tell us where you are. What part of the US are you in? I know it's a hot place, judging by what you're wearing.
Well, I'm hearing thunderclouds roll in. I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, in the Appalachian Mountains. It's traditional Cherokee and Catawba land.
So, what's your landscape like?
It is very mountainous. Right now, the mountain laurel and the rhododendron and the azalea are in bloom. I'm in Asheville, which is a city, but we have black bears that will wander through the streets. I have a black bear that routinely walks through my driveway every evening, bounces once on the trampoline, sits in the water feature, and then jumps over the fence. We could set our clocks by him.
I take it this black bear is not dangerous?
No. I mean, as long as you stay back, long as you stay back, you're not aggressive. You don't get between a mother and her cubs. They're pretty peaceful. They're omnivores.
Okay, so this one likes to jump on your trampoline.
Yes.
Wow. That is brilliant. So, as a druid, what is that landscape? How does that landscape speak to you as a druid?
Well, I was really resonating with your peace prayer. So I was born Quaker and raised Quaker and had a Quaker education. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite quotations from George Fox is, "Walk cheerfully over the world, answering of God in everyone." And what Druidry did for me is it broadened everyone. So everyone now includes the waterfalls and the bears and the mountain laurel and the rivers and the poems. So the landscape for me is really seeded with life and soul and poetry and the stories of everyone who's come here before me. And there are so many tragic stories on this landscape and so many beautiful stories on this landscape, whether you're talking from the perspective of people or trees. Most recently, we had a really devastating Hurricane Helene, that wiped out some towns completely and devastated our canopy by something like 40 to 60%. So there's a lot of loss, and we're mourning our trees, and at the same time, watching how things rebound, watching what shifts and changes in the resilience of the ecology. That's also part of the story. So I suppose as a Druid, speaking and resonating reciprocally with the landscape is important to me. Yeah.
Okay, and how did you move? Because Howard, my late husband, he went to a Quaker school, so he was brought up in the non-ritual tradition of sitting, in silence and no eldership, no dogma, just waiting until the spirit moved you to speak. How did you move from that milieu into a druidic one where we have rituals, you can do one every month for the moon or every 6 weeks to mark the wheel of the year? How did you make that transition?
Well, I suppose Quakerism, the kind of Quakerism that sounds like your husband was raised in and the kind of Quakerism I was raised in, it is very non-dogmatic. So it prepares you to listen in to the truth that is specifically yours, the particularity of your relationship with the divine, but then to test it against the greater idea of the divine in the larger meeting. And I think that's an excellent discipline. So similarly, when I first started discovering Druidry and the Druidic tradition, there's this sense of, okay, what if this resonates with me specifically? But then also, what's my responsibility in my particularity to add to this tradition or to give voice to? So I'm quite taken specifically by the bardic arts. I know you and I met at an expressive arts therapy conference, so I'm very committed to the expressive arts anyway. But that also feels like there's this necessity, this responsibility to participate, to bring your particularity to contribute. So for me, it was very natural, I think, the listening in, the seeing what resonates, what's mine to bring, what's mine to listen to and maybe be altered by.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know when we met. How many years ago was this?
Oh gosh, was it 2019, 2017? It was a while back. It was before the big plague.
Yeah, I remember working with you. Oh, that's just wonderful. So, so how did you find Obad?
Well, I found Obad through you because when we met at the Expressive Arts Conference, you had helped me with a dream, a very specific dream I had. That had a character from Irish history in it. And at that time, Obad would send the little blue books through the mail. And I signed up for the little blue books and was so excited about the way that they worked with story. It was more my orientation and my clinical work. And then COVID happened. And part of the way that I dealt with the change in my life that happened with COVID, which for many people around me, they got to have a lot more time and they spent a lot more time at home. I was the clinical director of a residential mental health clinic at the time. And so I had to go into overdrive. We were changing all of our policies and procedures, and I was at work all the time. And I came back to my little blue books, my old books, and I started telling stories. And I started using these larger stories to replace my little small scared story. And trying to see the world through the eyes of ancestors who had been through. And through that kind of came to what I thought of as my Bard Senior project. It only took me 7 years of telling a story for every turning on the wheel of the year. and gathering donations from people who want to hear that story, and together as a collective giving those donations back to an organization that was doing good work in our community, and finding a way to let the resonance of the story and the resonance of my own expression and the resonance of the community give back in that way, and find power and hope through that project.
Wow. So you have a story, at least 8 stories then. So one for every point on the wheel of the year. And hopefully we're going to get a story from you anyway during this conversation. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. So I would like you to talk about your expressive arts work, because it's interesting. So I met you because Vered and Boaz were organizing the symposium, and I'd known them for many, many years. And I would say, what is expressive arts? And they would explain it to me, and I still couldn't understand it. And then I did a weekend with them. It was a few months after Howard died, on grief. And I thought, oh, now I know what it is. And then there was the symposium they were organizing. And I don't know if you were at the first one or the second one. And which one was the Song of the Sea or the Anam Cara? Which one?
Oh, I went to both.
Oh, you went to both. Anyway, so my friend Sherry was coming, and she said, what's expressive arts? And I said, I can't tell you. I just can't explain it. Just come. And then she came and she says, oh, now I know what you're talking about. So I don't know. Are you able to explain what expressive arts is?
Well, it's kind of like they say, he who can talk about the Tao does not know the Tao. I think it's probably a little bit the same. But my understanding of it is it's really similar to what I find in the wisdom of the Irish triads. It's that willingness to hold the opposites, and then that third thing that unites them, and to hold that tension of the opposites. And in expressive arts, we call it the third thing. And the third thing is between the person who's holding the space and the person who's going through the experience, or the group who's going through the experience, there's the art, whether it is a poem or an arrangement of natural objects, or a dance, or material arts like watercolor or oil pastel. And through that third thing, something larger than who we were before begins to emerge. And then we relate to that third thing to enlarge ourselves and to pay respect to the thing that is larger than all of us, that could always move through us at any time. And the thing that sets expressive arts apart, I would say, from, say, traditional art therapy or psychodrama therapy or poetry therapy, is it's intermodal. So you might start by talking about your grief, and then the therapist might bring in a drum and say, do you want to find the rhythm of that? And you find the rhythm through that movement, you find the right color, and the color makes something that you maybe end up with a poem, because all of those arts interacted with each other, and what it was that wanted to move through you. And there's a completeness to that that's deep than just talking through something. It's a very, very wordy explanation of the experience.
I think I like your explanation. I like it. I've heard it explained so many different ways. I think that's beautiful. And of course, that links in so well with the Bardic grade, because it's all about however you engage with your landscape or the elements or the season to find that creative expression. And of course, again, there's no prescribed way to express your creativity. So if it's beating a drum or poetry or watercolors, or whatever way it is, and then it's not about being perfect in any of them. It's about finding your expression, and through that finding a voice.
Yes, that's exactly. There's no problem to be solved.
Yeah. And finding your voice, whether
Eimear, there's a slight delay, so I'm talking over you. I just want to make that.
Now, and I'm aware of that too. I haven't had any notification that I have a weak internet, but I've heard your thunder, and I wonder, does thunder affect? It does it here. If we've thunder, it does affect the internet signal. But I love what it does is that it helps you find your voice, be it a verbal voice or a tactile voice or a visual voice, or through the visual media. I just think it's beautiful. And it's a beautiful synthesis of the two. So I think that's just beautiful. And
And I want to circle back to what you said about there's no wrong or right way to do it. Because so often when someone comes to therapy, the longing in the heart is, can you fix the thing? Can you fix what's broken? Can you make my anxiety go away? Can you bring my loved one back? Can we solve this problem? And what I love about it's broken, it's what needs to be sung through you, or what needs to be made larger in you, such that you are now large enough to be in the presence of this wound or this pain. And I just find that so much more respectful.
I absolutely. The challenge is it's very hard to explain that until you have experienced you self singing that, giving voice to, or giving a movement to whatever it is. I think it's really hard to describe it to somebody, because it's like trying to describe the taste of chocolate to somebody. It's not until you take it do you actually know what it tastes like. And it's that giving yourself permission or the opportunity to voice something, either spoken word or singing or humming or yelling or whatever it is. It's through the experience of it that shift comes, whatever it is. But you can't explain that until you felt it. It's one of these mysteries, the miracles of that
Yes.
kind of
And
healing
the world
work.
larger because yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you repeat that? It got lost.
Yes. Yeah, I said the world is larger because you've done it. That's always the feeling I have at the end, is this expansiveness that something was added. And there is a certain satisfaction when something's resolved, when your symptoms abate somewhat. But this is so much larger than that. It's an experience of aliveness and vitality. And something has been created that wasn't there before, that is so deeply.
And it's interesting what you're saying is that often there's an assumption that when you have pain, whatever the pain is, I'm talking about psychological pain, we'll say, or that you must have resolved all of those issues from way back. And until you have those, then you're not a full being and you can't live a full life. And it's incorrect, because you don't have to be able to resolve everything from your past or childhood or past lives or wherever it is. The important thing is that you're able to live with them. And so, like just what you've said, it's much bigger than the problem. But when we're in the problem and stuck in there and feeling that pain, it's like, no, this is it. This is all there is this pain I'm in. And then when you experience something like that, you realize, oh no, it's way bigger than this. So I can just park this here. It's still there. I still live with it. I still work with it and manage. But it's not the only thing. And what a gift to be able to offer somebody an awareness or an experience of, this pain does not define you. It is not the only thing. It is part of your story, but it is not the whole story. And you can have it there and just step a little bit to the side and have other experiences that will actually help you manage this. Maybe you'll resolve it. Maybe you never will. But it's about living fully anyway with it.
Yes, I have this quote right up above my computer that I look at every day. You can carpet the world or you can wear shoes. And you'll never be able to get to every square inch of the world, right? To make all the bad people be quiet, or to make all the pain go away, or to make sure that everyone's fed. And even though that's a healthy longing, if you have to wait to start your work until the whole world is carpeted, we're all in terrible shape. You have to be able to, that's what I love about story, is you take away your small story of a world circumscribed by your particular pain, and you borrow a much larger one, all of a sudden the world is different. You're seeing it through a different filter.
And I think this is the importance of storytelling, is that
I apologize for my thunderstorm.
no worries. Blame it on the weather. That's what we do here in Ireland. But one of the things about storytelling is that you can change stories, you can change the endings, you can rewrite your own story. Sometimes, so I do. I mean, I'm quite subversive around a lot of our stories are very patriarchal, and I go, I'm not buying that one. I'm not going to perpetuate that misogynistic myth. I'm going to tweak it. And there's something really, really powerful about that we don't get lost in our own stories. We can rewrite them. And we can rewrite the stories of the past. Wow. It's not changing, it's not living a lie, but it's like,
I love that about
reframing it.
Too. See if I can do anything here. Is that helping at all, Eimear?
Yeah, you're frozen, but I can hear you. But just repeat what you were saying, just in response to what I said. You said something and then we were cut off. I think you have frozen. Can you hear me, Lisa? I think you have frozen. Okay, Morgan says, that's one thing I love about modern retellings of folklore and fairy tales, that they move with the times and address current problems rather than remaining static. Absolutely. I think that's really, really important. Otherwise, it's the same old, same old. And a lot of the stories are about, it's like it's reframing. It may be the same narrative, but you reframe it so it becomes different. Are you back, Lisa? Are you back?
I believe I am. Am I back?
Oh, yeah, you were. You were frozen back for a while. I was just repeating what Morgan says. There's one thing I love. Can you hear me now? There's one thing about modern retellings of folklore and fairy tales, that they move with the times and address current problems rather than remaining static. And I think that's something that's really, really important.
The stories, they're such a condensation of so many perspectives over so many generations to make it to us, or they would have been broken. That if the story has persisted till now, you will find something relevant in it to speak to or to live into, because it's so much bigger than any one person or any one perspective.
That is so true. Nimi says, like folk songs, they're about experience. The here and now, we're all the same. Yeah, then and now, we're all the same. And Pat Booker says,
again.
Okay, I'm going to get you to tell a story soon. A good story is like a diamond. If you turn it around, different facts catch the light. I think that is so true. Would you like, I think if you, maybe it might be the toing and froing that might be difficult between us. Would you like to tell a story now? We'll see if that'll work.
I missed most of what you just said.
Okay.
Would you ask again?
Would you like to tell a story?
Sorry, the internet is so poor. I'm hoping this thunderstorm will move through quickly. I would love to tell a story. And as I tell the story, I may just assume that all of you can hear me, whether I freeze or not. Yes? All right. And I want to start maybe by all of us taking a collective breath together and feeling the ground beneath the feet. We are very spread out, but we are a cohort. We're a cohort of living beings on this planet at this time, and we are breathing one another's breath. And just feeling into that web of connection, the way that we are related, of the support of the ground beneath you. Just noticing that you came here for a reason. You showed up because either there's something painful that you're hoping to resolve or something joyful. So just checking in with yourself and seeing what is the question that life is asking you right now. And if you can listen to the story through the eyes of that question, maybe it will have something for you. So somewhere in someone's heart, there was a king and a queen, and very much. And then the king died, and it was just the queen and her daughter. And the queen and her daughter loved each other so much, and there was such intimacy and such richness and such a sense of belonging. But the time came, as it always does, for the daughter to leave home. She gave her the gift of a golden goblet. And every time her daughter drank from the golden goblet, she would remember her own sovereignty. She gave her the gift of a magnificent talking horse, and she gave her a snow white handkerchief, upon which she had allowed to drop 3 drops of her own blood. Let these 3 drops remind you, you are deeply loved. The blood that runs in your veins has run in the veins of many before you. And there is no path that does not include some suffering. So the daughter took this handkerchief and tucked it into her bodice for the road. But the queen of the rules and laws of the court, and who could serve as chaperone for the daughter. And the emissary rode on her own steed that was stacked with provisions for her bodice. And they rode away from home. And if you remember what it's like to ride away into the world for the first time, it's never as easy or as glorious as you envisioned. It's often hard. And the princess says to the emissary, "Will you hand me my golden cup? I'd love to drink some water." Kingdom has been getting more and more full of her own power and responsibility, says, "Get it yourself. I'm not here to serve you." So the princess is a little hurt, but she climbs down from Falada, and the 3 drops of blood on the handkerchief murmur to her, "If only this your mother knew, her heart would surely break in 2. And she's reassured by that reminder that she is loved, and she climbs back. That the heat and the dust of the road get to the princess, and she sees a spring bubbling up by the side of the trail, and she says to the emissary, "Would you please hand me my golden cup? I would like to drink some water." And the emissary says again, "Get it yourself. I'm not here to serve you." And a second time, the princess gets down on her hands and knees by the water, and she scoops up the living water. And as she's drinking, the 3 drops of blood on the handkerchief murmur to her, "If only this your mother knew, her heart would surely break in two." And they resume. And it's a fairy tale, so you know what's going to happen again. A third time, they cross a stream of water. And a third time, this princess is not a very quick study. And Maya Angelou tells us, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Believe them the first time. But the princess, she's still young, and she's seeing the world the way she wants it to be rather than the way that it is. And so a third time, she says to the emissary, "May I have my golden cup? I'd like to have some water." And the emissary says, "Get it yourself. I am not here to serve you." And she's shaking in the way that we shake when someone around us disapproves of us. And maybe it's that shaking that dislodges the handkerchief from her bosom. But this time when she goes to drink, the handkerchief floats away down the water. And she loses that sure and true knowledge that she is loved, and the connection to her ancestors, and even that knowing that every road has a little bit of sacrifice and pain. It floats away down the river to be held in the other world for a while. She doesn't even notice it going, but the emissary notices. Because when we lose that connection to our own belonging, those who want to wield power over us know that we've made ourselves vulnerable. And so this time when she gets up to climb onto Falada, the emissary says, "Oh, no. That's my horse now. Give me your rich clothes, you sit on my horse. And if you ever say a word about what happened here under the blue sky, your life will be forfeit." And the princess, horse of power, when it's been a long, hot road and you're scared and you've forgotten that you belong. And so the princess, before long, there they are. And the prince sees them through the window, and he sees a woman in a rich gown on a horse of power, and assume the false bride, the emissary, into the castle. But the old king, who's been around the block a time or two, he's watching from the upper windows, and he sees the princess on the servant's nag, and he says, "Who's that?" And the emissary says, "Oh, that's some serving girl I met along the way. Give her some work so she's not too idle." And some bell rings in the heart of the king, and he thinks what to do with this girl. And he calls her to use some help. "So I'd like you to tend my geese." And that becomes the life of the former princess. She is now the one who tends these creatures of the land, sea, and sky. And because geese are at home on the water or on the land or in the sky, it's an apprenticeship to every corner of this kingdom. She's getting to know the land beneath her feet. But that's not all the loss she has yet to suffer, because the emissary remembers that Falada is a horse that can talk. And so the emissary calls her new husband to her and says, "You know, in my country, the bride gets a gift." And the prince says, anything. What would you like?" And she says, "That horse that I rode in on, it troubled me on the road. I want you to cut off its head." And he's a little shocked. He knows that she is a horse of power and very beautiful. He might or might not know that she's the last one in the world. But he's still under the spell of appearances. And he brings Falada to the executioner. And the last of the talking horses is killed. And at this moment in the story, I sometimes think this is more than a metaphor, because whole species dying out because of human greed or cruelty, that's real and it's true. But also I think of talking horses in fairy tales as emblematic of the body, the way that the body knows. And when we behead that communication, we are no longer listening to our embodied wisdom. But whatever it is, Falada, the song of Falada, is gone from the world, and the goose girl grieves and grieves and grieves. And finally she brings the last of the gold. "Will you hang the head of Falada on the gate that I walk through every morning to tend the geese?" And he complies. And it's a strange thing, but I want to ask you, have you ever found that the dead remnant of something that was once so meaningful is the only way you can continue to guide yourself back? And that's how it was for her. And every morning, as she passed under the gate to tend the geese with Conrad the goose boy, she would look up at the head of Falada and say, "Alas, Falada, I grieve your fate." And the head would answer her, "Queen's daughter, you'll pass through this gate. If only this your mother knew, her heart would surely break in two." And this is how we know that when our handkerchiefs float away on the water, they might be lost, but they're not gone. They're still there, maybe in the other world, maybe beyond the veil, maybe in some part of our soul that we haven't met yet. But here it is echoing through the head of a dead horse, so it can come from anywhere. And she hears that and she's reassured. And she goes on to her day of tending geese. And the only moment to herself she has in the geese tending is at her lunch break, when she opens up her bandana and eats some bread, and she takes out her tangled hair and she combs and combs her hair. But Conrad, as one might imagine, has a crush on this beautiful immigrant, and he really wants to touch her hair. He finds it exotic and interesting, and she just really needs her space. And so when Conrad comes up to her to touch her hair, she sings a song to the wind, and she sings, "Oh, wind, arise and blow today. Take Conrad's cap far away, that I might plait my hair in peace till he returns to tend the geese." And the wind rises up and takes Conrad's cap and tumbles it off into the meadow, so he has to chase it. And she has a moment of calm to remember who she is. She's growing boundaries, our little princess. She's learning how to take care of herself. And I've often wondered, why does the wind listen to her? She's never been magical before. And I think it's because that handkerchief is floating on the water somewhere, and the water and the wind speak to each other. And she's in an apprenticeship to the land, sea and sky. So maybe that's why she can talk to the wind. Eventually, as it happens for all of us, Conrad's unreciprocated love turns to hate. That you have sent to work with me is a witch. And the king says, "Why would you say that?" And Conrad says, "Well, she talks to decaying horse heads, and the wind obeys her command, and she's either crazy or she's evil, and I want nothing to do with her." But the king is a true sovereign. So he doesn't just believe what Conrad tells him. He wants to see for himself. He wraps himself in a cloak the next morning, and he follows Conrad and the goose girl through the gate, and he watches as the goose girl says, "Oh, Falada, I grieve your fate." And he listens, and he hears the horsehead reply, "Queen's daughter, you'll pass through this gate. If only this your mother knew, her heart would surely break in two." And he ponders this, and he watches the rest of the story, the part of the story Conrad didn't tell him, where he annoys the girl and tries to touch her hair. And he watches how the girl with dignity sends the wind after Conrad and takes a moment to collect herself. And he goes to her and he takes his cloak off and reveals himself as the king. And he says, "I've been watching you today, and I know there is more to you than you've been telling. Will you tell me your story?" And she begins to shake and cry. And she says, "If I told you the truth, my life would be forfeit." And I've been using this story to understand this moment in my country or in the world right now. And at this moment, for the first time, I realized, wait a minute. She's being jerked around by this promise of my life will be forfeit. But we already know that that's a lie, because Falada has already sacrificed herself and didn't make that oath. So I don't know that these oaths protect us. Anyway, my life will be forfeit if I tell you the truth of who I am. And the king, this wise old king, they're walking in the summer garden. And he says, "I have an idea. What if you climbed into that iron stove and told the stove your story? It's so important to tell our stories. And the stove will protect you from the blue sky. So you'll be keeping your oath." She really needed to tell her story. She needed to hear the truth of who she was from her own properties of transformation and transmutation, and evil witches go into them and talking cookies come out. And so she decided, yes, I will go into the stove and I will tell my story. And she went into the stove and began to tell the full story of what had transpired. The king knew that in addition to alchemical properties, stoves have acoustic properties as well. And so he went and bent his kingly ear to the pipe and was able to hear every word of what she said. And when she had finished telling the truth of her story, she emerged transformed, radiant, the way we are when we are in the integrity of our whole truth. And probably a little older, probably with some crow's feet and some white hair at this point, a true queen, not a princess anymore. And the king sees this and he holds a feast. And he holds a feast and he invites everyone in, and the excuse he gives for this feast is a bridal party. He seats the false bride on his right hand, and he seats the goose girl, the radiant princess, on his left. And no one recognizes her. No one recognizes her as the goose girl. No one recognizes her as the princess. So transformed has she been by this long apprenticeship to the land and the truth-telling. And when the time comes when normally musicians are called for, or poets, or entertainment of some kind, the king himself stands up and says, I will tell you a story. I will tell you a story of betrayal and treachery to turn your blood. Heard just after. We are bewitched. No one recognizes it as having happened just then, just now. And so when the king says, who is so controlled by greed and power that they would put to death a talking horse, what should be done? And do you know who raises her hand? Pick me, it's the emissary. It's the emissary herself. She says, I know exactly what should be done. And drawn behind 2 horses through the whole kingdom. And the king said, it is your own fate you have pronounced. Into the barrel you go. And if you listen to these stories as though the story happens in your own heart, under who is the emissary, rules and the strategies and the search for power, that she makes sacrifices that hurt the world, the living world, can bring her back. And there was an ancient test for kingship, it is told. And the test for kingship was, if you wanted kingship, if you wanted sovereignty, you were put in a cart behind 2 horses, and each horse had been trained since it was a colt to only go in one direction. And you had to find emissary prescribed for herself, non-binary curriculum of third thing. And maybe that's polarities, but finding the third thing. So in the end, we had a radiantly happy prince with a true bride. The prince who is no longer under the spell of appearances. And a true bride who had served an apprenticeship to the land, who had found her belonging in the wind and the water, and who was unafraid to tell her truth. And may it be that way for all of us, that even if the golden cup of sovereignty is taken from us, the power of our bodies, if all of those are washed away, knowing that the other world has all of it in safekeeping. Shanae.
You were breaking a lot, but I could get most of the story. It's a lovely story. Now, somebody wants to know, where can they get this story? Is that the Goose Girl? Can you put it into the... so it's the Goose Girl, yes? You've frozen on me. Nimi says, absolutely beautiful, thoughtful, and truly magical telling. Bravo, Lisa. Lovely story, wonderfully told. And Nimi says the pauses made it more magical. Okay. I was still able to follow the story. There were little bits missing, but it is a wonderful story. Beautiful, says Karasu. So I don't know if you can hear this, Lissa, but I don't know. Is it The Goose Girl by one of the, I can't remember who wrote The Goose Girl. Was it Grimm or was it Lloyd managed to follow it? That was lovely. I don't know who it is, and you've frozen again. So I don't know if you can hear me. It's such a pity because I don't think we can continue really with our conversation with the poor link. And we had so much more to talk about. One, particularly about a pilgrimage route in Ireland that's being developed. Brothers Grimm, thank you, Morgan. So I'm going to go out the Goose Girl because somebody had, oh, what's happening there? I'll just put this in. I'll just put that into the chat. Yeah. Okay. Lissa brought so much depth to her telling. Thanks. Cara Sue says, I grew up with this story as a kid. I really related to the Goose Girl. It's associated with somebody who was spiritually abused. Absolutely. Karen says, was it Hans Christian Andersen? Lissa is going. I think what we're going to have to do is call this a day. And thank you for coming. And thanks, Lissa. It's so disappointing that the internet is so poor. And for once, it's not me. So it's such a pity. And maybe I'll bring Lissa back again and we can talk. Oh, you're back. It was just...
yeah.
I'm just going to read one comment from Pat. It was interesting how Lissa kind of stood outside the story and commented and interpreted parts of it. Sometimes that really works, and it did at this time. I usually prefer to mull the story over myself later. And Mimi says, it's the awfulness of the poor talking horse that gets me every time. I think we're going to call this an end to this chat because it's too broken up. But it would be lovely to get you back again because we only hardly got into our conversation because I would like to talk about pilgrimage and this new pilgrim route in Ireland. So I just say thank you so much. I mean, people were able to follow your story, although it was broken many times. But thank you so much. I'll just let you say goodbye to everybody. No, it's still very frozen, isn't it?
Thank you, Eimear, and thank you everyone for hanging in there despite the connection.
Well, people want another story. They want you back. So
I apologize for the.
Well, you're not that powerful. We're not holding you responsible for the bad connection and the storms in North Carolina. So I will say, just hang on there. I'll send you to the green room, and I'll just close off here. But people would love to see you again. Anyway. So thank you all. Sorry about the poor signal, but technology does this to us. I'm glad hard to listen, or hard to hear, but still fun. Great, amazing story. So thank you all for being here. If you're watching, I say this morning, this afternoon, this evening, I know for those in the Southern Hemisphere, we have a few from New Zealand and Australia, which is very well. It's tomorrow in New Zealand, and probably I don't know if it's actually tomorrow in Australia yet. But people getting up early in the morning to watch this chat, which I'm always impressed with. So it'll be the storytelling around the heart next week, and then I will be away for 2 weeks because we've got the Summer Gathering. So see you on the 18th for another Fireside Chat. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of Bealtaine. It still lasts a whole month here in Ireland, and have a good evening, a good morning, good afternoon, or if you're watching a recording of this Fireside Chat. So much love to you all, and be well. Slán go fóill.